So, while we wait Sirpa to get her seat as well, I'll introduce myself again. Hi all, my name is Janne Peljo. I'm the Chief Policy Analyst at the Confederation of Finnish Industries, focusing on climate and biodiversity. So that's why I'm super happy to be here today. As of course, climate is a big topic, but biodiversity, as we have heard, is even bigger. We've had many super good presentations and speeches earlier today, and there are three words that are pretty much in all of them. The first one is of course nature, but then there is finance, as we are in a finance summit, but then regulation is something that always comes in all of the speeches. So that's why I'm super happy that we have a panel today combining finance and regulation. So let's build those bridges that are so much called for. We already had the introduction, so I'm not doing them again. So I'll go straight into the format. As we don't have much of time, this is going to be a rapid-fire panel. So that means that you have only 60 seconds to respond to the big and very complex questions I'm asked. So it's an impossible task, but let's try. And first up, Anne-Maria Salonius from Ålandsbankenin. How important the theme in your sustainability work is biodiversity today?
It's very important. Our sustainability strategy consists of 4 parts. It's the responsible investments, responsible lending, and social responsibility and environmental responsibility. And we are especially focusing on to mitigate the climate change and to the circular economy. For example, when we are lending money, we have small companies in the Åland Islands, a lot of small companies, so we help them to do the kind of ambitions planned, how to create a better environment. And we are only in the start to implementing the biodiversity into our decisions process. And we do also a lot of together with others. So we have this Baltic Sea project, and we are working together with John Nurminen foundations to this biodiversity, undersea biodiversity, and also with Baltic Sea Action Group, creating the kind of private protected undersea areas where are valuable species. We have one study we are supporting in the Åland Island, and it's on focusing how we can turn these offshore windmills to the reefs and actually create the good living area to important species in the Baltic Sea. But it's important to think that the actions we do to mitigate the climate change not necessarily help the biodiversity. And on the other hand, the actions we take to help support the biodiversity always help to mitigate the climate change.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important notion. It's not always that climate and biodiversity go hand in hand, but very often biodiversity and climate go hand in hand as well. That was a few seconds more than 60.
Okay. Sorry.
But good enough. Katja Keitaanniemi from OP Corporate Bank. OP is of course a big financial institution in Finland. You're doing a lot in climate, but what are the key concrete measures you're doing in biodiversity at this stage?
Okay, if I just start to motivate this whole thing, I would say that, over half of the global GDP is dependent on nature, some way or the other, so that is kind of the basic ground of everything. And also, I need to say that for instance, European Central Bank, they have estimated that, some 70% of corporate loans are for companies which are strongly dependent on at least one ecosystem service. So this is, the basic ground why we are interested. Nature and economy goes very strictly hand in hand. And if we look at our measurements at OP Group, I would need 1 hour to go through everything, but I mean, if I start with the fact that, I mean, our aim is to act as an inspiration for other players and other companies as well to act together towards these biodiversity elements. And I would say that, I mean, obviously there's not exact measurements or tools yet, I mean, come in global level at least, but it is really important to start sooner or later. I mean, the situation was same in climate side beforehand, some time ago, and I mean, it's cheaper if we act now and try to find our road together. And then those concrete measurements, we have kind of prepared this material kind of analysis for OP Group regarding our dependencies and impact on nature, and of course that includes also the important sectors for us. Then the other element is education. So we have 13,000 employees working at OP Group, and I mean, it's really important to have training regarding biodiversity, and we are having that already, and obviously we are going to intensify that road going forward. And the third thing is ongoing discussions with our clients. I mean, we don't have exact kind of tools, and no one has the right answers yet to kind of to solve all the problems. So we need to learn from each other and have very more and more intensifying discussions going forward with our clients. We have 40% market share in Finland, so that is really important.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's call that 62 seconds, right? Ville Niinistö, we've heard quite progressive comments already. The finance sector say that they're ready and committed to saving nature. They are already embarking on their own, and you're actually hearing that kind of risk management in prudential way is actually needs to be accounted for nature as well. So what else do you want to hear from the finance sector? Are you happy with this?
Well, I don't want to be a downer, but we are starting from a negative starting point. I mean, we have more economic incentives to destroy nature than protect nature currently, and this is starting the point that we have to be honest about it. But at the same time, if you look at what has happened on the climate side, 10 years ago when I was Minister of the Environment, the business communities were not on board on climate action. There was no transparency and there was no financing supporting climate action. And now the investors are demanding a change, and the money is flowing to climate positive, carbon neutral solutions. And the same is now happening in the biodiversity side. So I think biodiversity side follows something like 10 years after. Having said that, on the climate side, S&P just made a global analysis that only 40% of financial institutions have a policy to reduce their own emissions, and only 1/5 have a policy in their lending to make sure that it's in line with ESG climate action. And on biodiversity, this is even lower. So I'm happy that you are now on board looking at this, but we have to do more, we have to be faster, and we have to realize the markets that we get by being the early mover. If I look at it from a regulatory perspective and a parliamentarian, we have 3 tracks that we are doing as parliamentarians that will help them. One is price signaling, so we create markets. This is happening in carbon sinks. This is happening with the restoration law, also creating incentives to restore nature. We are also doing regulation and broader public policy, so CAP and public financing has to be supportive of biodiversity. And also there is a linkage here that the Parliament's position now on the voluntary carbon markets includes that if you do carbon farming, you have to have mandatory biodiversity co-benefits. So we try to align these 2 policies. And then the third area, obviously outside of pricing signals and public policy broadly, is the transparency and ESG reporting. And that is happening now with the taxonomy, that is happening with financial disclosure. So all of this that you are doing is actually having monetary value under the result of companies, and this is this is making the change that is happening on the climate side, and I think this on the biodiversity side, we are getting there. So finance institutions who are doing it right now will be leading on this in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, thank you. And that's basically how the structure goes. Kind of, if you want something to be addressed in an economy, you have to put a price on it, and then of course the policy framework at large needs to be supportive of it, and then decent transparency, decent reporting is required as well. But Sirpa, you've been in this theme for at least 2 or even 3 decades. What are the key steps that we've taken forward, and where are the biggest gaps in the EU currently in terms of biodiversity and nature?
Well, I would say that it is lengthily list what are the biggest gaps, because we would need to identify and recognize we have taken only just the first baby steps. Firstly, the ambition level needs to be science-based, so it is about tenfold resource efficiency, not the nature restoration law, but the restoration about 1/3 of the biodiversity, cutting down by 2030-35 the CO2 emissions by banning the use of fossil fuels. Should I continue? Because if we go with the side tracks, we are just losing the time and money. Okay, then if you reflect that on the regulation, firstly, you should mirror the accounting, auditing, and responsibility principles of finance fully on the sustainability. So you need to report both the positive and negative in different areas. Remember, it's not only biodiversity, climate, it is resource efficiency, it's chemicalization, it is the new threats and so forth. Then actually ECB is doing great work there. You would need to set and understand what is the risk level, as we heard several times. Environmental risk is going to be a huge economic and financial risk. So that needs to be reflected on the share values, stock values, on lending capital requirements and so forth. The credit rating institutions should be forced to rate the environmental risks and benefit also. What we would need then as a next step is to touch fully the public sector, knowing that we have a lot of perversive incentives, of course the climate being biggest, but not the only. There are destructive subsidies on biodiversity side. Then we would need to chase this is the UN Beyond the GDP initiative, the way how you count the GDP. So if you lose the natural capital, your gross benefit can't be increasing, nor as a company, nor as one government or EU. And so there's at least about 20 pieces of legislation. That should be the next sustainable finance package. But all in all, I think that what is the major thing, and that is already going and running, is that this is global standard. And this is the IFRS, ISSB initiative, so that you harmonize how you report, how you calculate based on LCA, and how you benchmark the values. And this is going on, and the taxonomy talks to align are already going between the EU and Japan and China. So yeah, we are on the way.
And the trade is moving fast forward.
It's moving really fast.
Well. Yeah. What about Miapetra Kumpula-Natri? Sirpa just laid out quite a longest list of to-do actions for the next EU Parliament and Commission. How do you think biodiversity and finance will be reflected there?
I believe that what Sirpa said, it's taking part, as the Green Deal was actually the first program that biodiversity was linked clearly to the climate change. Mm-hmm. So this is the baby steps we have only taken 4 years ago. And so it's really in the beginning, and it's good that this hall is full here in Finland, that we can also take the leading forward. And it's not also necessary to wait next commission to do it, because if you see that what science is proving, it's worth of taking into account. I also hope that you are the professionals not to finance stranded assets. That's something that it's not good to finance for the future. So that's why I think the sector is aware themselves also before we fight on the regulatory. Also, I think that what was not taking on board was the cap, that it is for sure that will come in front of us, securing food security, at the same time look at these other parts. But for me, I think there is two important factors also. I understand this is global when you talk about the finance, but maybe it should be even easier because the nature is local. And everybody should then support and see that some tools that we do, we cannot externalize them as we have in climate policies sometimes done. And then I think another interesting, I'm in the INTA committee with the global trade, so that it is embedded there finally with the small steps as well. But then also I think it's very interesting question of this industrialization policy that is taking now back, that how we will look that as the timing is very challenging. If you do it too late, we lose the industrial opportunities to also to do the demand-based politics, that also Europe can be provider of these goods that are better for the climate and nature. And if you do it too late, we will buy the gadgets from elsewhere. So this is very, very much on our table. And the final point, what I think a little bit challenging us, is that now the discussions are reuse versus recycle. There are countries who are really doing the recycling and invested heavily, some lagging behind, and now we see that there is more reuse idea, but then maybe forgetting that you take fossil oil to make it to plastic and then reuse it, and finally it's not recyclable and it's based on the fossil oil. So that's maybe also to fill in the good keynote speeches here, that the measurements and comparisons are not very simple to do, but we are finding all those details.
Yeah, and we have to be able to chew gum as we walk. So basically we need to be able to develop further the metrics as we are already embarking on the road. We've already exhausted 2/3 of our time with the first round, so let's try to stick to somewhat closer to 60 seconds. Anne-Maria, we heard that basically finance sector is already kind of leading the pack in terms of actually finding ways to address biodiversity loss. And now we hear that regulation is just taking first baby steps and now taking more steps in terms of more regulation. So this is black and white, but how do you see who's responsible for making this enormous change happen? Is it the companies and finance that needs to drive and wave the banner, or is it the regulation?
I think it's shared responsibility. We need regulation, we need actions from the private sector, we need collaboration and communication. But as a financial sector, we have huge impact. We are lending money, we are investing money, and financial flow, we should use that financial flow as a tool for the change. And also we as consumers, we have our role. So we are demanding what products the companies are producing, and we have also a big role in that.
Yeah, so
now it's short.
Yeah, and that was perfect, 60 seconds or even less. But Katja Keitaanniemi, what kind of regulation would you want to see coming from the EU institutions?
Well, I'm coming from business side, so I think it's really important to identify business opportunities in this biodiversity field as well. I mean, we can't reach our global target just by kind of restoration, or nature restoration, and that kind of thing. So we need business opportunities and business-wise solutions in that area. And regulation can, for instance, promote circular economy, which reduces the use of natural resources. And for instance, in our business, in our insurance businesses, we are developing, and we have developed circular economy models in the area of vehicle and kind of property claims. So, I mean, there's many solutions to use, and I think that regulation could support and help in this area specifically.
Thank you. Ville Niinistö, does that sound like the regulation you're seeing in Brussels? As I've been told by other lobbyists, it's that the regulation is too detailed, too late, and too comprehensive. But
well, the nature side is more difficult than climate even, and people complain about that in the climate side, that it's too detailed. But the nature side, we need to create the pricing mechanism, so that means that we have to first have data available on what nature effects actions have. So then we can price it in. So I think the big change in the 2030s will be from 2020 to 2030, we have the model more or less in place when it comes to Green Deal, but the next decade will be about sustainable land use. I'm definitely sure about this, that the next Commission will start to integrate carbon sinks and biodiversity action, nature positive actions into the marketplace. And that means that the companies will have added value on doing those investments. How to precisely do that is not yet kind of like, we are not finalized on that, but that's very much, and I understand that that's what you're saying as well, that we have to show that the externalities of an environmental costs are included in the price, and the positive nature effects are included in the price, which create this market where consumers want to have food in Finland that has less effect, negative effect on the Baltic Sea, and positive effect on water quality, positive effects on our inner waters as well. So this is going to happen, and I'm personally one of those green schools market positivities in this, but I also want to say that you create markets in environmental regulation by creating regulation. There would be no waste market, recyclability market, circular economy market if there would be no regulation. But the regulation has to be to support businesses to do the action, not public sector choosing the winners and investing themselves. So this is, I think, would be in your interest as well.
Yeah, so basically an encouraging, stimulating framework for private sector players to fight and compete in the market on who actually combines best.
If I put it shortly, if you listen to our French people, they always think that the solution to environmental problems is a new public authority. We should not do that. I think in the Nordics we have a kind of like market-friendly social democratic model as well. We can have a market-friendly environmental model as well.
So, Sirpa, how do we then create that market-friendly economic model to the environment as well?
Well, increase the transparency, that is the reporting, and harmonize the reporting, put a price to externalities, and this is both in public and private sector. Then create that kind of easy to follow sort of a nutritional value tablet for SMEs. We concentrate too much at the moment only for big companies, and if I look, for example, Finnish banking sector, quite a big part of the clients are SMEs, and they would need to comply and change the behavior, and that is not that difficult if you get the points right. And then it is both, it is the incentives, but it is the free rider dilemma too. So actually the regulation is a good business's best friend, and this kind of a laissez-faire economy lets everybody do whatever they want. Actually, Wild West doesn't benefit those responsible actors because the existing regulatory system is favoring the externalities, and so this is a big change, and the only way how you can do it is that A, you make it compulsory via regulation, and B, you have the active market participant to push for that, and this I have a very difficult plea for all of you. Please do lobby, the positive lobbying for politicians, because 90% of the lobbying, what we hear is saying no, 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 administrative burden, no, don't chase, and this is sort of the optimum regulatory environment. And I guess that all that are gathered here know that that is not the truth, and someone need to support the politicians in this difficult task.
I marked notes on my to-do list, so start lobbying.
That isn't that often that the politicians are pleading for lobbying, so now you heard it.
Yeah. We have a few minutes left. One comment in the script. So, Miapetra, if we backtrack from 2030, where hopefully the EU has been able to actually halt biodiversity loss and turn its economy to nature positive or actually is on course to do that. So what has actually changed in the 7 years? So what are the key successes we need to be able to achieve?
I think I can repeat what has been said, that it is both the private and it's governance and it's the regulation, all that together to see that the facts. And I think there is a strong demand, not only that the consumers want it, but the science is backing us to do that and see that more broadly. So actually, in the end, in all the regulation we do, we will look the impact. Because now it's not anymore that you only do one reporting, but when you do something, whatever on the legislation, you will have that look. But I think also I have to thank the host Confederation of Finnish Industries here for the social innovations they did before the elections. And I have been speaking this in United States and many colleagues that even here the government shift was happening quite radically. And I don't go to all the details, but I say what was the social innovation that publishing these investments list that about to happen green investments, that is the most great social innovations. Having the extreme or right-wing government, you have still the same targets and goals, because the industry was asking not to take the carpet away because the investments were going on. I was trying to give that to the United States before the elections and others when they are really up and running with the businesses on this shift to the climate neutral economy. And Finland still is leading this one. So it's not a small issue, it was very, very clever thing to do, and then can be maybe copied to elsewhere, that you really show that the investments are happening and the business is on the same side. So I also have to say that I have received nowadays a lot of lobbying from industry not to change the way and give them, I was doing the ETS, so there has to be price on the CO2, and I think we have to build in something similar for the biodiversity that will come then later.
Thank you. We have some seconds left, so Katja, go ahead. 10-15 seconds of final comments.
Okay, thank you. That's enough. I would just like to add that regarding, for instance, our sustainable financing, it is increasing rapidly. I would say some 70 to 100% year on year. And this is also related to biodiversity. So this is really, really important to enhance and support this area. But I mean, my main message is that attention is there. And obviously we have also exclusion criteria what comes to environmental matters in our mutual funds, but I still think that this is a common journey. We need to do it together. This journey needs assets, money, financing. So this is something we do together as a team. This is not black and white.
Excellent. And that's how it is. As we've heard today, I think our finance sector speakers and our policymakers are beautifully of the same opinion that this is the task we need to do, and we can only work together to achieve it. And that's how we should work. Maybe I'll end it with a very personal remark. 8 years ago, I was pretty much on this same stage, preaching to a choir of Finnish investors and Finnish corporations, and saying that, have you heard of greenhouse gas protocol? This is something new that's up and coming. Within 5 years, you will be mandated to actually kind of follow that in your reporting, so please start preparing for that. And now, 8 years later, we are pretty much in a situation where everyone is reporting their CO2 emissions, scope 1 and 2 and even 3. And I hope that even faster we'll be in a situation where biodiversity is as mainstreamed as climate is already today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.